Hello everyone, I'm Scruffy at Scruffy Tales, and you have just stumbled upon the War Zone. And in this video, I figured I would take a look at 3 hotspots along the front line. And we're starting off with the Krynky bridgehead. And this is, of course, where Ukraine has pushed light armor across the Dnieper River, which has made a lot of Russian propaganda outlets poop in their pants. And as we can see here, if you compare the two images, Ukraine has actually, in the last couple of days, pushed into a section of the town of Krynky, and they're now contesting a rather large area of the town itself. And here we can get a feel for the area that they have pushed into. You have a mix of industrial locations, you have resident buildings, and you have a big forest. And you can see the bend in the river, the prominent square up in the right, and a bit of a triangular road down to the left. So this is the area where Ukraine is currently contesting Russian positions within the town of Krynky. Now, I'm not so sure that Ukraine plans on doing anything this winter with the vehicles. I think they're moving in vehicles to allow them to establish a foothold, to establish this bridgehead, and then the proper fighting will begin come the spring. That's my guess. But who knows? I mean, they might have something up their sleeve. But what is interesting here is you have the town of Krynky, and it is essentially connected with the town to the east, Korsunka, and the town to the west, Kosachi-Laheri. These three towns have merged, more or less. So if Ukraine begins to expand and eventually grab Krynky, they can just go on and keep pushing towards towards Korsunka and towards Kosachi-Laheri, and eventually grab all three towns, since they essentially have grown into one big, massive settlement. And if we zoom out, we begin to understand why Ukraine might want to try and push armor across the river at this location. You have Krynky, the blue box is where they are currently contesting Russian dominance. And as you can see, they can push out to Korsunka, to Kosachi-Laheri, and that would give them a pretty substantial piece of territory to control, and from where they can launch further strikes against the occupying Russian forces. And what makes Krynky so special is the forests. If you take a look at the rest of the map, it's farmland, but here at Krynky you have vast stretches of woodlands, which allows the Ukrainians to maneuver in cover. They can advance without being spotted all the time by Russian drones. And so this is why I think they have chosen Krynky to push in armor at this stage, to establish a bridgehead so they can then flood in more troops after winter, and then push out in these three towns and then secure the forests to the south of Krynky. What's also interesting is further south here we have the Oleshki Sands National Nature Park. This is, as far as I can figure it, a big desert, and which will probably be a pretty solid defensive barrier to the south. Because if Russians try to outflank the Ukrainians through the desert, well, drones will spot them quite easily, and Ukraine can counter them. And in a desert, there's not much cover. So, yeah, I it, there that also plays into why Ukraine has chosen Krynky to cross the river. And if we play with the idea that Ukraine expands their presence into the forests and they grab territory, well, then they can push on towards the town of Shelburda and the town of Nova Mayashka, right? Two large settlements that Ukraine can push towards and push into, and grabbing those, then their hold on this piece of territory will be solidified, and Russia won't be able to push Ukraine out anytime soon. So these two towns in the red boxes will more or less securely anchor the Ukrainian troops and deny Russia any chance of pushing them out of this territory. And if Ukraine gets this far, I think the main objective after that will be to push west towards the Antonivka bridge and the troops holding out over there to secure it so they can then push vast amounts of troops and equipment over the river and take the fight to the Russians properly. And a secondary objective might be to try and reach the Novakakovka Dam, potentially, to maybe get troops across the river that way, and to put even more pressure on the Russians, obviously. Now we're moving on to the trenches of Verbove. So Ukraine has made minor advances here. I think it's some 500 meters. And I located some tree lines, some windbreakers that gives us a frame of reference. And the Ukrainian advances have taken place to the south west of this box here. And as you can see, the box is located on higher ground, so it's down in the valley where Ukraine has made some gains. And here the box represents the gains, the location of the gains that Ukraine has achieved. And you can see where we have trench lines and where we have some features in the terrain so we can orientate ourselves. So this is a fight over open territory, over windbreakers and tree lines. No trenches here at all, and it's down in a valley. So it's territory gained, obviously, but it's not territory gained up on the high ground. It's not territory gained within the trench systems, but slowly but surely they are pushing in closer and closer towards Verbove. Right, that was short, but now we're moving on to the fields of Avdiivka. And Russia has made some gains north of Stepove. They haven't pushed straight at Stepove, but they have expanded to the north. And we might wonder why this is. Uh, Interestingly, though, ISW have added on their maps some claims made by Russia on how far they have advanced, and that might give us a hint why Russia has pushed northward, north of Stepove instead of straight at Stepove. And according to the ISW map, the Russians have claimed to have outmaneuvered Ukraine completely north of Stepove and north of Berdychi. So that is what we may be seeing confirmation of. Maybe not that they have gained all the territory claimed as claimed by the ISW map, but that this is their intention. They want to bypass Ukrainian defenses and attack Stepove and Berdychi at the same time. And why is this important? Well, through Berdichi, we have a road that leads straight to a town with a railway with a train station to the north of Berdichi. So if Russia can reach Berdichi, then that line of supplies has been cut for the Ukrainians. Likewise, if they take Stepove, they can move in to the west of the big coke plant and threaten supply lines running through the fields into Avdiivka from the west, basically. So going around Stepove and Berdichi allows the Russians to threaten Ukrainian supply lines, and once they grab Berdichi and Stepove, they can push southwards to threaten even more supply lines. And the same goes for their actions in the south, obviously. They want to push in on two vital towns, Sevierne and Tonenke, and from there on they can then push north to the vital town of Orlivka, where all the Ukrainian supply lines merge, and then continue on towards Avdiivka. So the actions around Stepove are probably intended to go around Ukrainian defenses and then later threaten Ukrainian supply lines. Interestingly enough, though, we can see that Russia has made some moves towards Novo-Kalinove and Keramik as well, launching artillery and engaging in some firefights, as well as bombing close to the town of Ocheretune. And Ocheretune is this town with the train station that I was talking about. And here Ukraine can move in troops to the train station, to the town, and then they can send down reinforcements, supplies, and what have you towards Avdiivka. And what is interesting is that we have 3 Russian moves to the northwest. 3 pushes towards northwest, towards potentially maybe Ocheretune and the train station. And maybe it's part of Russia's plan to not only bypass Stepove and Berdichi, but also push towards the important train station at Ocheretune to deny Ukraine the use of this very important train station. Which would force Ukraine to send in troops from further away, spending fuel and time and waste resources and valuable hours on the roads instead of being closer to the action and getting sooner into combat. So it looks like it makes sense, these weird pushes to the northwest, if you ask me. And I mean, if Russia makes it all the way to Ocheretune and grabs the train station, and let's say they eventually grab Avdiivka, then they have a line of logistics from occupied territory through Avdiivka all the way up to Ocheretune, and then they can use Ocheretune as a forward base of operations to continue further attacks into Ukraine. So this could potentially be quite important for Ukraine to contain the Russians, to prevent them from pushing on beyond Keramik in this case. Yeah, like I always say, I'm leaning towards that Russian generals, bastards as they may be, that they actually know what they're doing. Thankfully, their platoon commanders and company commanders don't really know what's going on or how to deal with the situation and the orders they're given, but the generals seems to know what they're doing, to be honest. The red circle, that's just not a point of reference for how Russia has advanced. That is actually a small village that I have made a video about not that long ago. If you remember the failed Russian assault across the massive field where they were forced to make a U-turn, and then they were hit by Ukrainian artillery until everyone no longer was walking back on their own steam. Well, that attack was aimed at that village that I marked with the red circle in the previous graphics. So here it is, the village in the red circle, and the box is detailing where Russia was trying to attack, and the attack that I covered in my previous video. Beep, beep, beep. Headset shut down, but easily fixed. So, yeah, it seems as if the Russians finally got across the field and managed to secure this small village. And that is now from where they are staging their attacks further into Ukrainian held territory. That's it. That's all I have for you in this video. Just a brief look at 3 hotspots that I thought were interesting to take a bit closer look at. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one. Go på marsch, Ukraine. Give them hell.